Hello, our Savior, and welcome to building solid relationships for lasting success. In our last session, we stated all relationships, whether it's a relationship with your spouse, your parent, your child, even a coworker, all relationships require time, effort, energy, and teamwork. And if you do not invest time, energy, and effort into a relationship, ultimately, that relationship will begin to atrophy, and eventually it will die. According to the research of John Gottman and the University of Washington, we also identified the masters and disasters of relationships. Now, by definition, we did not set the bar all too high for the masters of relationships. We simply said that the masters, they simply appear to enjoy being with each other. They appear to have a healthy relationship. They appear to enjoy spending time with each other. But the disasters on the opposite end did not enjoy spending time with each other. And ultimately, they were headed for separation and dissolution. Over 25 years, John Gottman and his team of researchers at the University of Washington identified a ratio of 5 to 1, 5 positive for every 1 negative, to simply maintain your current relationship. If you want your relationship to grow, to become stronger, to become healthier, you need a ratio of 20 to 1. 20 positive for every 1 negative. In other words, the positive interactions, the positive communication, the positive times together have to far outweigh the negative. On the opposite end of the spectrum, the disasters of relationships, they have 0.8 positive to every 1 negative. So it is imperative that we focus on building positives in our relationships with each other. In our last session, we identified the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. We said these are the things that research tells us destroys relationships: criticism, defensiveness, contempt, and stonewalling. But today, we're going to turn to the positive. We're going to focus on how to build those healthy relationships. And in order to do so, we're going to turn once again to the research of John Gottman and the University of Washington. They developed the Sound Relationship House theory. Now, the Sound Relationship House has 7 different levels, and its walls are trust and commitment. So over the next couple of weeks, I'm going to give you some concrete, very practical, measurable, objective things that you can do right now, ways that you can build and strengthen your relationships. And so today, we're going to take a look at the bottom levels of the Sound Relationship House. We're going to take a look at building love maps, sharing fondness and admiration, and turn towards instead of away from each other. Now, those 3 levels, the 3 bottom levels, basically define friendship. And remember, friendship is imperative. Friendship is the foundation upon which any relationship is built. And so let's dig into this. Building love maps. Okay, building a love map is knowing one another's world. Okay, building a love map is knowing all the relevant information about your loved one. It's knowing the major events in their life. And it's constantly updating. It's constantly taking in new information. It's knowing each other's world. You need to know each other's goals. You need to know each other's dreams. You need to know their worries and their hopes. And when it comes to building love maps, knowledge is strength. So how do we gain this knowledge? How do we build this love map? Well, we ask open-ended questions. Questions like, honey, in 3 years from now, where do you hope to be? What do you hope is different? Or over the last couple of years, how have you changed? It's learning each other's dreams. It's learning our desires, our aspirations, and even knowing our fears. And the way you do that is simply by asking open-ended questions. But it's also imperative that you not only ask the question, you need to remember the answer. Now, disasters of relationships? Disasters are so focused on other responsibilities. They're so focused on work, or they're so focused on social activities, or they're so focused on finances. They're so distracted by everything else that they fall into the habit of inattention. They don't pay attention to their loved one. And remember, if you don't put time, energy, and effort into a relationship, ultimately, that relationship will begin to atrophy. And so what's taking place here is they're putting their time, energy, and effort into everything else but their loved one. And the people that we love the most are often the ones we hurt the easiest. Masters of relationships, they're intimately familiar with each other's world. They ask those questions, they commit the answers to memory, and they constantly update their information. Now, if you need help with this, John Gottman, and you can just go ahead and Google it, has the open-ended questions. It's a deck of cards with all kinds of open-ended questions. You just draw one out and you spend time with each other answering that question. It helps you identify and helps you build love maps. The second level is nurturing your fondness and your admiration for each other. Now, if you think about it, that's countercultural, isn't it? Nurturing fondness and admiration for each other. That goes against the flow of what we're taught. We're taught critical thinking. If you want to be identified as being intelligent, you need to be a critical thinker. Even the terminology, you need to be critical. And what we're taught in our culture is that in order to be intelligent, in order not to be taken advantage of, we need to be critical of everything and everyone. In other words, we oftentimes look for the negative. We look for what's wrong. But in order to build a good relationship, we need to nurture that fondness and that admiration for each other. In other words, we need to have a positive view of each other. We need to notice what's positive, not only with our loved one, but in our relationship as a whole. And having this positive view is the antidote to contempt. Don't forget, contempt is the #1 predictor of divorce. If you show and display contempt for each other, it's the key factor to separation. And not only to the destruction of a relationship, but contempt is directly correlated to your health as well. And so in order to combat contempt, we focus on the positive. In other words, we appreciate each other. We appreciate our relationship with each other. Yeah, we put on those rose-colored glasses. But once again, research shows us that that's not being naive. Oftentimes, there is far more positive in a relationship than there is negative. The issue is we just don't recognize it. And so it's recognizing the positive. It's showing appreciation for each other and then voicing it. Once again, it is extremely important that we voice our appreciation. We voice our fondness for each other. And so here's my challenge. Remind yourself of your spouse's positive qualities. Every day, take opportunity, take a moment, and remind yourself of your spouse's positive qualities. Focus on the positive, not the negative. Maintain a sense of respect for each other. All right? And so here's a practical way that you can fan the flames of your relationship, okay? I want you to go off, you can even do this together, but just kind of separate from each other, go off to your own little space. I want you to identify 3 positive characteristics of your spouse. Okay, write them down. 3 positive characteristics. And then I want you to come up with a specific incident where your spouse displayed that positive characteristic, something that they did. And then after you do that, I want you to come back together and just simply share with each other. Okay, turn off the television, make sure the kids are in bed, where you can just spend some time with each other, identify those positive characteristics, those specific incidences, and share them with each other. Another way that you can nurture fondness and admiration, recall the past. Sit down and talk about when it was you first met, what it was that you loved about each other, what it was that attracted you to the other person. Recall those first dates, those things that you used to do before you got married. It's one of these things where you spent time with each other. And in fact, you enjoyed each other so much that you wanted to spend more time with each other. You enjoyed each other so much that you even took it to entering into a covenant relationship with each other. And so recall the past. Recall those things that you used to do, reminisce, okay? And then even do what you used to do. Go ahead and recreate it. If when you dated, you used to walk a lot, and you just walk around the neighborhood and talk, well then do it again. Okay, whatever it was that you used to do, go ahead and do more of it. If it worked once, it will work again. See, I think we need to train ourselves to focus on the positive. All right, we need to focus on that which is going well, not simply being critical. It is so easy for us to go right to the negative. Our imagination, once again, always goes for the worst, and we're usually wrong. Train yourself to focus on the positive. The third level is turn toward each other. Okay, it's a choice. We turn toward each other. Disasters turn away from each other. Okay, now they don't always mean to do it on purpose, but disasters of relationships, they more often than not turn away from each other. But when we enthusiastically turn toward each other, it's called a turn toward bid. When we turn toward each other, that is an extreme positive. It builds healthy relationships. For instance, I heard this illustration. John Gottman and his team of researchers, they have what's called the Love Lab out at the University of Washington. Basically, they have a house, and it's set right there on the sound, so it overlooks the water with the sailboats and the ships and everything, in the water. And this couple can go into the house, they can spend a weekend there, but they're also recorded. Okay, a turn away bit. A husband was sitting down at the kitchen table, and he was eating cereal. And he was intent on eating his cereal. His wife, also in the kitchen, looked out the window, and she saw the sailboats in the beautiful distance. Okay? And she said to her husband, "Wow, look at how beautiful it is. Look at those sailboats." To which the husband just continued to eat his cereal. Okay? That was turning away from each other. A turn toward a bid for each other would be, "Oh wow, yes honey, look at how beautiful that is." That would be an enthusiastic turn toward bid. Okay, that would be engaging in the conversation. I mean, a positive turn toward bid could even be as simple as lifting your head up from the cereal bowl and going, "Yeah, it's pretty." Even that is a positive turn toward bid. Turn toward bids are extremely important in building relationships. Okay? In fact, go ahead and guess, how many times do you think somebody will rebid? Okay, so if they bid for your attention and you do not give it to them, 0% of the time in unhealthy marriages. Okay, so they will not rebid for your attention. In a healthy relationship, they only rebid for your attention 22% of the time. Right? So those who divorce, research shows us, had only had positive turn toward bids 33% of the time. For those who stayed married, for those who had strong, healthy relationships, they turned toward each other 86% of the time. All right? It's imperative that we turn toward each other, that we turn our attention from whatever it was that was distracting us to our spouse, to our significant other. And like I said, oftentimes couples, they turn away from each other not out of malice. They don't do it purposefully, but they do it out of mindlessness. They get distracted, and then they start taking each other for granted. Okay? And once again, the ones we love the most are often the ones we hurt the easiest. See, sooner or later, we are going to hurt each other. Sooner or later, we're going to think an unkind thought. We're going to speak a hurting word. We are going to hurt each other. John Gottman, he identifies those as being regrettable instances, right? We hurt each other. It could be a comment that comes out. It could have come out sarcastically, or what we said could have just simply been construed inappropriately. We didn't mean it to come out that way, but that's the way our partner received it. Masters of relationships, when they hurt each other, repair hurt feelings. So masters, they attempt to repair what they did wrong. Okay, it could be as simple as saying, "Hey, that came out wrong. I did not mean it to sound like that." Or it could be something like, "Hey, you know what? Now that we're done tearing each other apart, you want to have a piece of cheesecake together? I'm sorry." And sitting down and repairing that relationship. It's interesting, it was the University of Pennsylvania that did all kinds of research on forgiveness. And I love it because they're even using the term forgiveness. The scripture's been talking about this for thousands of years, and now they've done research on forgiveness. Forgiveness is imperative to have a healthy relationship. Forgiveness does not necessarily mean forgetting, but forgiveness is not holding it against someone. Okay, so if our spouse hurts us, if they say that unkind word, or if they do something that causes offense, yes, we want to repair that relationship. We want to repair it, but then we don't want to hold it against them. We offer them forgiveness. Here's an illustration that John Gottman uses. Okay, ultimately, we are going to hurt each other. Let's just say you're emotionally available to your spouse 50% of the time. Okay, so 50% of the time that you're together, you're available to your spouse. In other words, you're available to be engaged, emotionally. You're available to have that conversation, to be sympathetic, to be empathetic. Okay, so 50% of the time. Okay, now in all honesty, that's probably pretty high, right? I mean, a more conservative view would be 30% of our time we would be emotionally available to our spouse. But let's just say you're available to your spouse 50% of the time. That's one person. It's like flipping a coin and getting heads, right? 50% of the time. Now, if you have two people, that means the probability of both of you being emotionally available to each other is 25% of the time. Okay, that means that you're both going to flip the coin and you're both going to get heads. Okay, that's only going to happen 25% of the time. Now, think about that. What that means is that 75% of the time that you spend with your loved one is ripe for offense. 75% of the time. Either one of you or the other is not emotionally available. Okay? And so, in reality, with the conservative view of 30%, that would mean 91% of the time you are not emotionally available for each other. In other words, we are going to hurt each other. We're going to cause offense. And so we need to make that choice to be forgiving. Paul wrote in Ephesians chapter 4, and be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, even as God in Christ forgave you. Just as we have been offensive and God forgave us, we also need to be forgiving. We need to be loving toward each other. And I also want to talk to you about the power of commitment, right? Commitment. Commitment is that concept, okay? That no matter what, no matter how bad it gets, no matter how ugly it gets, I am not leaving. I am not going to turn away from you. I am not going to walk away from you. It's no ifs, ands, or buts. That when you said I do, you meant I do. In sickness and in health, in good times and in bad, I am committed to you. I am committed to our relationship. It's something that, once again, we cannot take for granted. I want to encourage you to talk it out, to talk about your commitment with your loved one, because that commitment is an extremely powerful bond. It's that super glue that oftentimes can hold a relationship together because you know that your loved one is not going to walk away from you. That no matter how bad it gets, no matter how difficult it is, they are there. And we're not going to be separated. All right. The fourth level of the sound relationship house is having a positive perspective. All right. A positive perspective, it doesn't take the negative instances, those regrettable instances, it doesn't take them personally. Okay. In other words, it's having a positive sentiment override. Okay. That your positive view of your spouse is so strong that even in those times where they do say something negative, they do cause that offense, you're not going to take it personally. Okay, we need that positive perspective for repair work to take place. Okay, so in other words, we need to give the benefit of the doubt to our loved ones. They did not do it on purpose. See, when you have a negative perspective, you take everything personally. Okay, Bob Weiss at the University of Oregon, okay, he said negative perspective are looking for the negative because the friendship is not working. Okay, because those first three levels of the sound relationship house, those first three levels are not working. Okay, so they do not have a sound relationship. They do not have a sound friendship. And because that friendship is weak, or because that friendship is fragile, They have a negative perspective and not the positive, right? So once again, it's imperative that we focus on building a strong friendship, okay? The negative sentiment override, they kind of have this chip on their shoulders, right? They're always looking for the negative, okay? And usually they're looking for the negative for good reason, because they've been hurt. This is what has happened in the past. And so they're always focused on the negative. They're always focused on the worst. They're always critical, okay? Because the friendship is not working. We need to focus on building the love maps. We need to focus on building and nurturing fondness and admiration for each other. We need to focus on those first 3 levels of the sound relationship house. Okay, and guys, here's some good news for you. With good friendship and with good admiration, with that good relationship comes good sex, good romance, good passion. All right, so direct correlation, right? And don't forget, there's a direct correlation between housework and loving too. All right, so friendship. Friendship acts as the foundation, right? We build love maps. Okay, we nurture fondness and admiration. We turn toward each other, okay? And we focus on the positive. Focus and strengthen your friendship. Okay? You have a great week. God bless, live love, and I will see you soon.